Yeah, throughout the farming experience, I'd read The Emperor Wears No Clothes and heard of all the different uses for hemp, the 25,000 different uses. And I was really intrigued by the building materials aspect of it, and specifically the hempcrete. So I started going down a rabbit hole and wanting to experiment with it.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you were became interested in building with hemp and what your sort of origin story was, what you where how you were exposed to it, and then how you sort of made decisions to get into this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess well, I had a background in construction kind of throughout my whole life. My parents did a lot of renovations and fix and flip properties and things. So I was constantly around construction when I was younger. And I would work for them. I would work for their general contractor when I was younger. And then in 2015, I started farming hemp on their property. They had a farm property in Longmont. And I started pretty small. And then the second year, we did 5 acres. And actually, the first year I started, hemp was fairly new. I think Colorado had just legalized it in 2014, and I started farming it in 2015. And so I actually started with a industrial variety, and I only grew like maybe a couple hundred plants in their backfield just to kind of get a hang of it and see how it grew. I was really just intrigued by all the possibilities of hemp, and so we expanded to 5 acres the following year, and we did 5 acres the following year, and then that year, Longmont had a really crazy hailstorm. We just planted 5 acres by hand with an auger, which was insanely hard to do. And then about 2 weeks later, after the plants had all taken root and everything was looking good, we got golf ball sized hail, wiped out the whole field. Every single plant was decimated. Hemp grows like a weed, so essentially what the hail did was topped it, like cut the plant down at the base of the stalk, and so they just ended up growing back from the base of the stalk like bushes. That was
Right.
CBD
Uh-huh.
that year. Yeah. And and yeah, we still were able to harvest a crop. Um but yeah, throughout the farming experience, I'd read The Emperor Wears No Clothes and heard of all the different uses for hemp. Um, the 25,000 different uses. And I was really intrigued by the building materials aspect of it, and specifically the hempcrete. So I started going down a rabbit hole and wanting to experiment with it. But the issue was we couldn't find any hemp herd. We started buying it from Old Dominion. And shortly after that, we figured out how to import it from France, the Cannabat from La Chanvière. And this was that was probably in 2018, 2017. And we just started playing around with it in an old goat barn that my parents wanted to turn into a studio. So my friend and I, Daniel Scowcroft, pretty much in our free time would just go play around with hempcrete. We
And you worked
invested.
with different binders and different sort of recipes, posillons, etc. Right? Because I remember
Yeah,
seeing the goat bar, and it's totally great. It belongs to
Yeah.
somebody else now, though, right?
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I think I bought Will Stanwick's book at first, or maybe it was a different one, and I started to learn um, different formulas to use, and we would go down to Rio Grande, which is like a building material supplier in Denver, and pick up some lime here and there, and various sorts of pozzolan. We tried. I think we ended up doing 40 to 50 different um, mix formulations using pozzolan, cement, natural hydraulic limes. There was a company in Denver called Transmineral USA that was importing and distributing St. Estier's products. And so we ended up learning a lot through that process, like what worked and what didn't, how to tamp, how not to tamp. We really learned how not to build with hempcrete. And through
Right.
that process, we learned how to build with hempcrete, what works, what doesn't. And we kind of refined our own formula and our own method to install it. And we ended up insulating that whole goat barn. And then I think it was 2021 when I had the Rocky Mountain Industrial Hemp Summit at their farm, and I grew a field of hemp, of fiber hemp, but I planted it in like July 1st, so it didn't get very tall, but it was still kind of a good example of how fiber varieties grow compared to CBD varieties. And we had a bunch of people out for that event. Alex Sexsmith came out, Corbett Hefner, a couple others that I know very well now that were fairly new to the scene, as were we. And so through the Rocky Mountain Industrial Hemp Summit and just throughout the time that we spent experimenting with it, I had become pretty comfortable with the material and met. I held a class after the Rocky Mountain Industrial Hemp Summit workshop, and I met 3 or 4 people in that class that wanted to build a hemp house. Um,
Including Bruce and Bronny, who
Bruce
just finished
and
theirs
yeah, Bruce
up
and
in
Bronwyn,
Peonia.
and yeah, they were there, and Talis Schley,
Taylor was
who
there. Okay.
Talis and his brother Ryan were there. Vladi, I forget his last name, was there. He's building a hemp house. Um, and there was one other person there that was is still very interested. But yeah, so then Talis pulled the trigger, and at that time I had established connections with distributors and for Pozlan hemp and lime, and felt pretty comfortable installing it. And luckily Talis, kind of made a leap of faith, because I'd worked on one hempcrete project with Tony Lauterock from Hemp Ecosystems. I think
Was that in Switzerland or where was it?
no, that was in Williams, Oregon.
Okay. He came
Um,
into the States to do it.
yeah, yeah, and so I established a relationship with them, and I ended up investing to bring over. I split a container of materials with Finley Sabin, and got a mixer and a bunch of Pozzolan. And I had used their Pozzolan. At the time, their Pozzolan had been installed in thousands of cubic meters of buildings across Europe. So I felt pretty comfortable with their mix. Um,
Did they have the same kind of lime that you can get here in Colorado, or did they have a different, like, did they have hydraulic or hydrated, or what
well,
was
yeah.
the
So Europe has natural
N5?
hydraulic limes, but we don't have natural hydraulic limes. They also have a lot of dolomitic lime and high calcium lime. and we have a lot of dolomitic and high calcium. So I ended up just matching their technical data sheets with TDS's here in the US, and ended up getting the same exact lime that they use chemically. And yeah, and then we jumped on Talos's project, and we've done a bunch since then.